Dr. Zia Ahmed, and welcomes to you on my YouTube channel. Here, I often record videos for the benefit of my students, and today, also, once again, it's from American literature. This is Whitman's Song of Myself, section 48. I have divided the lines into different fragments, although the poet did not mean that. Just for the sake of understanding, for the benefit of the students, I have done so. The first set of lines says, I have said that the soul is not more than the body, and I have said that the body is not more than the soul. And nothing, not good, not God, is greater to one than one's self is. And whoever walks a furlong without sympathy walks to his own funeral, dressed in his shroud. So these four lines give us the philosophy of the body and the soul. There has been a long debate in the world in almost every religion and society and culture, whether body is superior or the soul is superior. Most of the time, people have hierarchized soul to be superior as compared to the body. But the poet says that both are equal. As for example, he says that soul is not more than the body and body is not more than the soul. So according to him, these two things are one. These two things are the same. These two things cannot be hierarchized on the level of superiority or inferiority. He says so because in the next line he explained the reason by saying, and nothing not God is greater to one than one's self is. He says, one's self is the most important thing. One's self is the thing which is very much important in this world. He says, nothing is more important to that except God. He says that if a person does not walk in this world without the sympathy, without the love for humanity, then that person is actually moving towards his shroud, towards his funeral, towards his grave. It means that if you are living in this world in such a way that sympathy is in your mind, love is in your mind for humanity, then you are a great person. And there is no question of thinking whether living is good or not. This world will pay you or not, your body will pay you or not, or your soul will pay you in the next world. That will not be the question. So it means that the biggest message of the poet is instead of falling into the confusion and the kind of disturbance whether which is better, where the reward of humanity is present, it is better to do something good, according to him. If you walk in this world even for a furlong without sympathy, you will be ending yourself into nothingness. So, walking with sympathy for the humanity will definitely pay to the people whoever are doing this. So, the basic point is that we should walk with sympathy for the other. Same is the case with the second set of lines. It says, and I or you, pocket less of a dime, may purchase the pick of the earth. The poet says that this attitude, that living in this world with sympathy or love for others, is a type of attitude that even if you don't have anything, any coin in your pocket, you are very poor, you don't have such coins, even then you can purchase a very selected piece of land. It means that you can win the people, you can win the nature, you can win the soul and the body as well, if your attitude is benevolent, kind, and loving. And the poet continues with the same tone, and to glance with an eye or show a bean in its pod confounds the learning of all times. He says, if you try to discover what is nature, what is the spirituality of nature, you will be very much surprised because even if you look at the pod where the bean is present, it is present in such a way that your all knowledge will fail there. It will be so complicated and beautiful that you will be required to praise nature or to admire God or to worship God who has created this. And there's no trade or employment, but the young man following it may become a hero. He says if you have this type of attitude, I mean, first of all, sympathy for the human being, and then starting to wonder and think what nature is and what are the beauties of nature, what are the skillfulness of nature, at that time, if you do these things, then definitely you can become the hero later on. There is no other trade, there is no other employment, there is no other business that can make a young man hero. This is the search for nature, this is the search of truth of nature, this is the search for God, this is the search for the betterment of humanity that will make the people hero. All right, and then let's go to the next set of lines. For example, the poet here says in the golden lines, and there is no object so soft, but it makes a hub for the wheeled universe. And I say, to any man or woman, let your soul stand cool and composed before a million universes. He says this is a human being, the best object of the world. A woman or man, both are the best object of the world. He says that they are a complete universe according to themselves. For example, if they are standing cool and satisfied and patient, then they are far, far better than millions of universe. And he says that it is the kind of center. Human being is the center around which the whole universe is wailing. It means that creation of man by God is the kind of creation which is the superior most creation. As we also say that man is Ashraful Makhlukat, the best creation of the God, it means that this is the person who is the center of the universe. This is the person about whom or for whom the universe is going to be. So, according to the poet, this is the face of man or that of the woman, which definitely is the most important thing. This word, when you think in these terms, you are not required to talk about soul or God or body or reward or whatever the case may be. The poet continues with the same tone, says, "And I say to mankind, be not curious about God. For I who am curious about each am not curious about God." The poet says, I want to know the things. I'm a very much curious person. I'm in search of certain things, but I don't want to search for God because God lives with me, because God is everywhere. So that is why he is advising the people not to be so curious about God. For example, why? No array of terms can say how much I am at peace about God and about death. He says, my death is certain, presence of God is certain, so there is no need to look for that when it is very much certain, very much sure. And so I hear and behold God in every object. The reason is that according to the poet, whatever the object you look at, for example, any plant, any flower, any beautiful thing, any part of the earth, any human being, the God is present there. Yet understand God not in the least. Like in Firbi, even then we can say that we are unable to understand God. We are and not having the capacity to understand it fully. A little bit of understanding may be present. So why then to think about that? Just think in the way as the poet says that God is everywhere. God is around you. God is inside you. And that is the kind of philosophy of pantheism which has been preached by Wordsworth also in his prelude uh, in the 19th century. And that is the thing which the poet is once again trying to say in terms of God, in terms of soul and body. And with the same tone, the poet continues the next set of lines. Nor do I understand who there can be more wonderful than myself. He says that it's beyond his understanding. Is there anything else which is more beautiful than he himself? The human being is the beautiful creature of God, and that is why he says that it's not possible to think that there could be anything which is more beautiful than him. He is the best creation of God. Why should I wish to see God better than this day? He says, then when I am the most beautiful thing created by God, there is no need to look for that. It is the creation of God which definitely says something about God, what kind of personality or great personality or bigger controller or power or force that God is going to be. And that is what he says he is thinking about. The poet says, I see something of God each hour of the 24 hours and each moment then. So, in this way, this is the time in which God is present. He says, every hour of the 24 hour, every moment he feels the presence of God. In the faces of men and women, I see God. He says, when I look at the human being, I praise God for the creation, such a beautiful creation. So, that is why God is all the time there in his mind, in his thinking, in his soul, in his body, all around him, every time he's there. And in my own face in the glass, he says, I am the reflector of the creation and the power of God. That if you look at me, you can understand how powerful, how great God is going to be, that He can create such a thing. He says, I find letters from God dropped in the street, and every one is signed by God's name. Letters, he says, are being dropped by God in the streets. No, it is not actually letters that's being dropped there. It is in fact the thing which the presence of God he feels in every street. He says indications are there. When you look around yourself, you can find out that God is present everywhere. And I leave them where they are. He says, so therefore, there's no need to look for God. God is around you. And I know that wheresoever I go, others will punctually come forever and ever. He says, wherever I go, in whatever mode I go, I will be able to find the signs of God. I will be able to feel the presence of God, and therefore it will happen continuously and punctually and permanently because God is permanent, and as a result, His presence is also permanent. It's only the need of the human being to understand. So, just by giving a few lines in this section 48, the poet has provided us the philosophy where is God, what is His creation, and what is the importance of human being in this world, in this universe. According to him, we don't need to look for God. It is God who is all around us. In the time, God is there. In the presence of God can be felt everywhere. So God is present. We don't need to think in these terms that when we will meet God, only then God will be with us. God is all the time with us. So the poem goes to this section, rather we should say, highlight the importance of the creation of human being. What a beautiful creation of God, and from here you can understand how beautiful he can be, how powerful he can be, how intelligent, how force God can be. This is all the poet is trying to teach us through his lines. I must clarify that the ideas which I have mentioned are emerging out of these lines composed by the poet. These do not necessarily mean what my belief is going to be as a Muslim. It is the kind of thing which emerges out of these lines. And most of the time, we also have the similar kind of belief that God is present all around us. He is ever present, and omnipowerful all around us. So, this is what the lines go to emerge out of that, and that's what we can have an understanding of that. So, thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time in some other video regarding the sections of the poem Song of Myself by Walt Whitman.